And today, this year, the feast of Saint Alexis. And then, what's your problem?
Yes. Can't get it to go to live.
It should already be set up, right?
If something happens.
Is it on the YouTube thing or?
YouTube.
You gotta go to YouTube.
There's YouTube.
Let's see here. One second. Okay. Good?
Yeah. No, it's,
You got it. Yeah, it's good to be back here again and I'll find my place here. In San Diego. And so the feast here today of Saint Alexis. And so today we'll not read the Epistle and Gospel. The Epistle and Gospel, of course, the Gospel speaks about blessed whoever leaves his father or his mother or his wife or his home for my sake shall receive 100-fold here below and eternal happiness in heaven. And Alexis is one of the saints that left his wife. So that's his claim to fame. So Saint Alexis, when he was on the day of his marriage, he loved his wife. He loved the woman that he was going to marry. He had no trouble with her. He married her, and on the night of the marriage, he left her inviolate and he ran away. So he left his wife, and he then lived 17 years in complete obscurity. And when he ran away completely. He changed his name, and he went living as a beggar throughout the land. And then he was discovered, found out who he was. So then he ran back to his father's house as a beggar. And his father received him in his house because he was generous to beggars, but did not know that it was his son. And he lived another 17 years with his father not knowing that it was his son, still looking for him. And so he lived in complete obscurity. And then he wrote a little letter before he died, and saying that he was who he was, and his father then realized who he was at his death. And so we have here one of the many. Remember, one thing about the lives of the saints is that there is a great variety amongst the saints. And St. Thomas Aquinas says the reason for this is that God has infinite ways of showing His goodness, infinite aspects to His divine love, infinite aspects to His divine truth, infinite aspects of everything about Him. And since He can't show one aspect in any saint, or one aspect in any flower, or any lion, or any creature, He made an infinite number of creatures to show forth His goodness. Well, He did the same thing amongst the saints. There's such a great variety amongst the saints, and Alexis is one of them. So he left his wife, and she didn't know where he went on the day of the wedding, and lived in complete obscurity, and was a sign of the great humility of God. Because as Saint Jerome points out, and look at the miracles that happen every day. We see secret miracles happen every single day. Where there is a seed, and God makes it grow into an oak. And He always operates in the background. And the seed grows into a great oak. And a little bitty a baby grows into a great lion, or a great bear, or a great man, or whatever it might be. And all done, God operating secretly in the background. And hence we see that Alexis, one of those saints, showing that how God, on the one side, He is to be praised. On the other side, He likes to operate in the secret in the background. Because God is under everything. God is above everything. God is in everything and through everything. There's no place where God is not. And so Alexis, one of the saints. And today, rather, we'll read from the breviary, not the story of Alexis, but what is read in the breviary of his short life. I just explained to you, or a short explanation of his life. But St. Gregory the Great says, from the book of Morals, on the book of Job, the simplicity of the just man is laughed to scorn, from St. Gregory the Great. This is the wisdom of this world, to hide one's feelings by artifice, to veil one's thoughts in words, to make falsehood appear truth, and the truth falsehood. Certainly this prudence young men learn by experience, and boys pay to learn it. Those who know it take pride in it, looking down on others. Those who know it not humbly and timidly admire the others who know it. This evil of duplicity, veiled under an honorable name, is esteemed by them, and perversity of mind is called good breeding. This wisdom will have its votaries seek after the highest dignities, rejoice in the vanity of earthly glory, and repay with interest any injuries they may have received. It teaches them never to give way to others while they have strength to resist, and to obtain by a feigned goodness what they cannot by open wickedness. Whereas, on the contrary, the wisdom of the just is not to practice dissimulation, to speak what is in one's heart, to love the truth as it is, and to avoid falsehood, to do good without looking for return, and gladly to suffer evil rather than to inflict it, never to seek revenge for an injury, and to think it a gain to suffer reproach for the sake of the truth. But this simplicity of the just is laughed to scorn, for the wise of this world look upon the purity of heart as foolishness. Whatsoever is done by innocence seems to these carnal minds merely stupidity, and whatsoever is approved by truth is to them but folly. And what is more foolish in the eyes of the world than to make our words express our thought, not to use dissimulation, not to repay injuries with abuse, to pray for those who speak evil of us, to abandon our possessions and seek after poverty, not to resist him who takes from us that what is ours, and to offer the other cheek to him who smites us. And so this wisdom of the world that St. Gregory speaks about, which in healthier times, everyone knew this wisdom. The wisdom of the world, the wisdom of dissimulation, the wisdom of, how do you make it in the world? By perversity of heart. This wisdom of the world, to hide one's feelings by artifice, to veil one's thoughts in words, to make falsehood appear truth, and the truth falsehood. This prudence young men learn by experience, boys pay to learn it, and those who know it take pride in it, and those who don't humbly and timidly admire those who do. So you have three kinds of people. Those who are knowledgeable in this wicked wisdom, those who try to learn this wicked wisdom, those who pay to learn this wicked wisdom, and those that are not good in it, and they admire and want to imitate those who are. These are the options of modern hearts. But what's happened in our times is that this which is known to be sin by any man of reason is now considered virtue. And it is now considered virtue, and it has found itself in Catholic tradition. It's found itself throughout the entirety of the Catholic Church. It's found itself everywhere in the world. This wicked wisdom. And so that St. Gregory describes it. The wisdom of the just is not to practice dissimulation. This wisdom will have its votaries seek after the highest dignities, rejoice in the vanity of earthly glory, and repay with interest any injuries that they may have received. So if someone attacks you, you repay with interest, says St. Gregory. Someone gives you a slap, you shoot them. Somebody says a bad word to you, you destroy their reputation. Someone slights you, you try to kill them. We always repay with interest. This is the wisdom of the world. And this wisdom is now believed to be an obligation. We hear about it many times. Don't let anyone attack you. Stand up for your rights. This is one of the great evils and great lies of our modern world. And it is found amongst Catholics. It is found in our church. We must stand up for our rights. We are not to do good to those that hate us, do good to those that persecute us. We're not to follow the gospel, as St. Gregory says, but he speaks these words in the year 600 A.D. He speaks about the wisdom of the world. The wisdom of the world. This wisdom is all around us, only it has gotten more deep into our blood, and we believe that we're innocent when we live by this wisdom. Those who live by this wicked wisdom of the world, this dissimulation, never say what is in your thoughts. Never express your feelings. What you cannot get is done by wickedness, you do by feigned goodness. So whenever you try to force someone to do your will, and if they won't do it, then you switch to being nice. You switch to being kind in order to get them to do your will, in order to get them to do your bidding. And what is the rule? We are going to advance ourselves to the highest dignities. We're going to defend our rights. And the real reason that motivates us is that we really think that we are God. It's that simple. St. Paul says, their God is their belly. And we are in the time of the idolatry of man. This idolatry of man has gotten very deep in all of us. And remember, the Antichrist is the man that will call himself God. If a man comes around here today in a normal time and says, I am God, we will say he's crazy. And we will put him to death if he tries to spread his foolishness. But if every man already believes he's God, and if every man already thinks himself as God, and then a man comes and says, I am man and I am God, we will believe him. And so how do we prepare our hearts to accept the Antichrist? And how do we prepare our hearts to reject him? The way to prepare your heart to accept the Antichrist is to simply care about yourself first, to defend your own rights, to make sure that you are not tread upon by anyone else. Like we see the tough guys, they got "Don't tread on me" tattoos, and the "Don't tread on me." Don't tread on me. Where does it come from? It comes from Satanists. And it's a snake that says, don't tread on me. Who is the snake speaking to? The Blessed Virgin Mary. And this is a Masonic symbol of Satanists. And they say, don't tread on me. And now it becomes a symbol in America of don't tread on me. Don't let anybody walk all over me. I've got my rights. I've got my independence. And I'm going to defend my rights. And when they come after me, they might get me, but I'm going to pull out my pistol and my machine gun and my AK-47 and my M16 and AR-15, and I am going to blow one guy's brains out, and then they can get me. But I'll have gotten one guy before you die and burn in hell, and they get you. And by the way, you're not a good shot. You won't get them. They'll get you first. But the fact is, there are many souls today in Catholic tradition, in the Catholic Church. They dissimulate. They dissimulate. And why do they dissimulate? In order to achieve their goals. We find this, for instance, in Catholic tradition. Some of the hallmarks of this behavior, which is preparing for the Antichrist. The majority of the sedevacantists. What do? When you come to a CMRI chapel or a sedevacantist chapel, they always tell you, you don't have to be sedevacantist. They don't tell you what is in their heart. They don't tell you what is in their mind. And St. Gregory says, this is the wisdom of the world. And then they say, well, you don't have to. It's not important. We don't even talk about it most of the time. And then you come to the church, and after a period of time, you slowly learn. Do you know that the Pope is, St. Robert Bellarmine says that if a Pope loses the faith, he's not the faith, and he can't be a Pope, and cum ex apostolicos, and so on. But I'm not saying that he's not the Pope, but he must not be. Next thing you know, you become a sedevacantist. We're used to this way of thinking. And we see the success of it. Those who are not holding the truth use this method very effectively. Don't tell people what is in your heart, as St. Gregory says. Don't tell people the honest truth, as St. Gregory says. This is called foolishness. And this foolishness, now Catholics believe that if we do this, we are foolish. You can't tell everybody that the new Mass is bad. Now the Society of St. Pius X, imitating the same error. We find in the Society of St. Pius X, we're going to go to all the people in the Novus Ordo, and we're going to go to all the people that are following the erroneous ways of the modern world, and we're not going to tell them the truth. We're going to gently bring them to the truth. We're going to first tell them positive things, and we're not going to tell them the truth. We're not going to lay out the truth clearly. And when we tell them positive things, they'll begin to like us. And after they begin to like us, then we will tell them, oh, did you know that Vatican II is really quite bad? It's not just a matter of abuses, but it's actually worse than that there's actually errors in the council, perhaps even heresies. Well, you don't say that on day one because they'll run away. This is dissimulation, says St. Gregory the Great. So that what the wisdom of the world says, do not say what is in your heart. Do not say what is true. but rather analyze the audience, analyze the group that you're speaking with, and then adjust to them, and do not speak the truth, and then let them be slowly brought into your beliefs. Now this works if you're a liar. This works if you follow Satan, but this method cannot work in the followers of Christ. And one of the deceptions of the devil today is that the followers of Christ are being told, use the methods of the enemy against the enemy. Fight fire with fire. Every time I went to a fire, I've always found water far more effective. However, fight fire with fire. And so they say you have to use the methods of the enemy against the enemy, because the methods of the enemy work. The trouble with the methods of the enemy is that they are evil methods to achieve an evil purpose. And if we use evil methods to achieve a good purpose, it will not succeed. Now many people within Catholic tradition, they are following the wisdom of the world. And they say, we're going to go into the modernist churches. We're going to be approved by them. We just want to be approved. We're not going to tell them the whole story. We're going to imitate the wisdom of the Muslims. You may have heard of Muslims once upon a time. What do Muslims do? When they enter into a country, they're always good citizens. They don't cause any problems. And they're very gentle and kind and understanding until they reach a certain percentage. And when there's enough of them, they then start to implement little bits of their Sharia law. And then they try to explain a little bit more about their Islam. And when there's enough of them, they start blowing things up. They start murdering people. And they start trying to spread their kingdom violently. But they begin, when there's only a few of them, by being peaceful. They begin with only a few of them by being good citizens. They begin by being good examples. And then later on, you discover the venom. This is the tactic of Satan. Slowly infiltrate. Just remember the beware of Greeks bearing gifts, said a wise man once upon a time. They brought the horse, the great Trojan horse, inside of the city. And then out they came and opened the gates and destroyed the city. And so the fact is that we cannot follow the tactics of the enemy. We cannot follow the methods of the devil. We have to say clearly and straight what things are. And this will always be considered foolishness by the world. Always. But what has happened in our times is it is not only considered foolishness by the world to speak the truth. It is not only foolishness by the world to speak plainly. It is foolishness by the Catholics. The Catholics believe it is foolishness. This is the wisdom that they explained in the 1960s. We're going to dress no longer priests like priests. We're going to act normal. I just call me Father Bob. Because when you see me in a big black cassock and walking around with a beretta and with a stole and with a crucifix, you're going to run away. And you're going to not go to confession. But if I come to you with shorts and a t-shirt and say, I'm Father Bob. And then you say, oh, Father Bob is a nice guy. And after you go to Father Bob to the bar, and after you go to Father Bob out at night on the town, you're going to want to go to confession. You're going to need to go to confession, but you may not want to go to confession. But the fact is that somehow you're going to respect and love Father Bob. It didn't work. What happened? Father Bob left the priesthood. Father Bob ran off with a girl. Now Father Bob's run off with his boyfriend. And so what has happened? Father Bob lost his priesthood. The faithful did not come to God. And the Catholics ran away from God. But what was the deception? It's called the temptation of the world. This is the key element of the temptation of the world. The world believes in wisdom. The worldly wise. We use that expression, the worldly wise. The world believes in wisdom. The wise man of the world knows how to survive. He knows how to survive. He knows to follow whatever the present kingdom is. This wisdom is now considered virtue, even though we know it's vice. And this wisdom is entered in the Catholic faith, Catholic tradition. So that we're going to now use the same method in the resistance that they are used in the sedevacantist Jews. The vast majority of them, some of them are honest, most of them are not. Most of them say, oh, you don't have to be a sedevacantist. It's just an opinion. Feniites do the same thing. It's just an opinion. And then they tell you that you're a heretic if you don't believe them. And they go back and forth. And so now we're going to imitate them. We're going to imitate those who are not holding the truth. And we cannot do that. The truth is said openly. The truth is expressed openly. And also victory comes by expressing that truth openly. And will always be considered foolishness by the world. So go back to St. Gregory. St. Gregory the Great. Whereas on the contrary, wisdom of the just is not to practice dissimulation, to speak what is in one's heart, to love the truth as it is, say the truth as it is. With regard to our present crisis in the church, the truth is the holy sacrifice of the Mass is a renewal of the cross sacrifice of Calvary. It's the crucifixion that takes place on the altar. The new Mass is a sacrilege that offends God, whether a good priest says it or a bad priest says it. It's a sacrilege that offends God, that calls down from God the wrath of heaven. The error of sedevacantism, though many people can easily fall into this error because of the wickedness in the church today. We see the wickedness in the church, so we tend to say, he's not my father. He's not my superior. I reject him. And hatred enters the heart. And violence enters the heart. And this is not of God. But the fact is, we must recognize the truth that while our Holy Father is being a wicked pope, and while our Holy Father is following the devil, he's not the first one to do that. Caiaphas did that 2,000 years ago. And King David did that. We're reading about it in the breviary today, King David. And Absalom. Absalom is also in the breviary today, and he's a great example.